It's just desk videos for a little bit. I don't know what to tell you. I've been really obsessing with some things I've learned about the fast food industry currently. COVID was such an interesting little time in American and specifically capitalism history, like economic history, just really unique. And I think we can all agree that fast food has just gotten more expensive, right? I mean, I think that's kind of a universal American talking point at this point. And I know that like Sam and I have personally said to each other on more than one occasion, it is just as much money to go to a restaurant as it is to go eat McDonald's. That's crazy to think about. McDonald's, Taco Bell, KFC, these places used to be, I remember specifically saying you can go to Taco Bell with $20 and dine like a king. I don't necessarily know if you can say that still. Granted, I haven't been to Taco Bell, but I used to pretty much be able to say that about McDonald's or Burger King, and I have been to those places a couple times in the last few years. I definitely can't say that anymore. But I felt really vindicated as I sort of learned more about what's going on with that industry, and they have seemingly taken advantage of sort of the zeitgeist talking point that labor increasing the minimum wage would be passed on to the consumer, because that is true. The wages on average have gone up since COVID. And specifically, we've seen that with just what previously considered minimum wage jobs are offering. You know, Target's $20 an hour, Dunkin' Donuts is $19, $18 an hour. These used to be wages that I dreamed of doing, you know. When I was like doing door-to-door sales, I wish I was making that kind of money. So these corporations have sort of taken that public understanding and public excuse. They've taken advantage of it to a certain extent, because now these companies have been sort of caught red-handed as their prices, their price increase is outpacing inflation just kind of across the board. Some of the worst culprits of this have been McDonald's and Starbucks. And what's interesting, and both of those CEOs have been caught publicly saying that it's because of wage increases. But at this point, their prices have outpaced those very wage increases. So the numbers just don't add up anymore. And they saw really great profits and really great expansion, especially in kind of tandem with COVID allowing a blooming of, you know, DoorDash and Postmates and Uber Eats and those sort of services. But now they're kind of paying for it, because McDonald's just saw its first loss in several years. Starbucks has been seeing year-over-year losses, and the whole loss of the dollar menu has had a huge impact on the way consumers view fast food and the value that it serves. And you'll notice everywhere you go right now, they're all offering these $5 meal deals, and that's in direct response to the shift from McDonald's being considered a cheap way to get delicious tasting food. But on the flip side of everything, restaurants that are just a step above fast food, I mean, let's be honest, like these corporate dining places like Chili's and Applebee's have seen a uptick in profits. And that's because I think the overall idea that I have had a conversation about in my very own household, which is it's just as much money at this point to go to a restaurant than it is to go to fast food. So let's just go to a restaurant. And something that I've been also really obsessing about is how many major, huge companies, specifically digital companies, have been operating at a loss for so many years. You look at Netflix, they've been operating at a loss for their entire existence. Uber has never made a profit. Amazon just made a profit, you know, maybe 5 or 6 years ago. Spotify has never made a profit. These are things that I know I've even talked about on this channel. And to use sort of the Netflix digital streaming platform thing as an example, I was learning about today how Netflix originally, after they sort of had clobbered down Blockbuster in terms of dominating them and just strumming their chest as the big kings of the jungle, they had to find a new way to promise shareholders and promise specifically Wall Street money as to how they were the next big investment. And they went to Wall Street investors and declared that they were going to spend the next years investing in something that would revolutionize the industry, which was specifically online streaming. And they were pretty upfront with the fact that they were going to adopt a business model that would take on severe losses, but as long as they could continue to get the capital, there would be long-term gain. gain. What was that business model? Well, the very business model that you are very familiar with, which is, hey, you can watch like pretty much every movie that you've ever wanted for $10 a month, and it's all available to you now. We're going to produce original content. That content is going to be on par with, at the time, the gold standard being HBO. However, the problem is that business model is not sustainable, because look at cable. Cable was a subsidized service, subsidized by advertising, you being the product that they were selling. And even though you were paying Xfinity $150 bazillion a month, you were mostly paying for the infrastructure setup. And what they were delivering to you was paid for largely by advertising. So then to offer a service that was super cheap, that while you were still paying for the infrastructure through internet, you weren't paying for any kind of advertising. Seems too good to be true, right? Well, it absolutely was. And Netflix was pretty upfront that this was not something that was sustainable, but in fact was going to give them leverage to dominate and revolutionize the industry, mainly destroying the competition, destroying legacy media, things like ABC, NBC, traditional television. What happened? There was a huge wave of people doing cord cutting, and everybody adopted streaming. I mean, everybody and their brother was sharing passwords and doing streaming stuff. And so all these companies saw this as like the new wave, because they saw this massive, almost overnight success with Netflix. And so, Warner Brothers created HBO Max. There's Paramount Plus. There was Hulu, created by Disney. Then there was Disney Plus. And then now there's like MGM Plus and Discovery Plus, and all of these streaming services where they shifted heavily and put all of their eggs into the streaming basket because they saw it as the future, because people were cutting cable. So if they wanted to stay relevant, they wanted to stay alive, they wanted to keep their IPs profitable, they were going to have to move to this new online digital streaming platform. However, the secret is it's not really that profitable. Netflix had a huge leg up, and I just saw a diagram recently where Netflix is still the absolute leader in terms of subscriptions, and so they are by far the dominant force. And what happened? I mean, how many people do you know that still pay for cable? And even those channels that still exist on cable, things like MTV, they're just playing reruns. Additionally, those most popular shows on streaming platforms are shows that are reruns, sitcoms, The Office, Friends, those kind of things. So what am I getting at? I don't know. There's like this Netflix has done to entertainment what Uber has done to taxis, what Airbnb has done to hospitality and frankly, property values. Uber Eats is doing to delivery industry. Amazon has done to brick and mortar. Cannot forget the big boy on campus, Amazon.com. These business models, which is I'm going to operate at a loss provided you give me capital, and I am going to accumulate debt with the promise that I am going to operate at a loss for the sole purpose of undercutting all of the competition. And when I've taken out all of the competition, I will jack up the prices, like you've seen on Netflix and so many other services, Amazon with Prime raising. Once I have the corner on the market, I'm going to jack up those prices, and then I will begin repaying that debt, and you, the investor on Wall Street, are going to make bank. That's the perceived idea, I suppose, I guess, as far as I can tell, because there are so many huge companies that are giant, monstrous bubbles. And have we seen the success side of these companies yet? I mean, maybe. I don't know. I don't know enough about it, but it gives me the spooks, and it also feels very late stage capitalism. And I'm concerned that we are being put on the hook for something that sounds like a better alternative to the crap that we currently have, but then we end up paying the bill and having worse crap.